Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Ahsan Academy, let me welcome you to a presentation on blood circulation of the upper limb. I have divided the total presentation into different parts, and this is the first part of the presentation. In this part, I'll try to cover the how the circulation of the upper limb begins and how the artery leads into the upper limb, and the basic idea how to study the artery circulation of any part. And finally I will try to discuss the initial part of the artery supplying the upper limb. This is the heart, beating heart. You can see it is present in the central part of the thoracic cavity, and when it pumps, the blood from the left ventricle passes into the ascending aorta. From the ascending aorta, it gets inside the arch of the aorta. This is ascending aorta, and this one is the arch of the aorta. From the convex surface of the arch of the aorta, three branches arises. This is the brachiocephalic trunk going to the right side, and on the left side, you see this is the left subclavian artery going to the left upper limb, and this one is the right subclavian artery going to the right upper limb. Two arteries, one from directly from the left side arch of the aorta. This is the common carotid artery, and it is on the right side. The common carotid artery is the terminal one of the. This ascending aorta originates from the left ventricle, as we have discussed this just now, and this one you can see this is the third rib and continuing as the third costal cartilage. So it starts at the level of the left third costal cartilage, and it ascends superiorly as well as to the right and a bit anteriorly curved. So this is the small ascending aorta, and it continues as the arch of the aorta at the level of the second. This is the second rib, and at the upper border of the second costal cartilage, it continues as arch of the aorta. You can see here the marking. This is the stern, manubrium sterni, and just behind the lower half of the manubrium sterni, this arch of the aorta lies. This one is the ascending aorta. You can see arising from the left ventricle. It is behind this. This is the opening, and this one is the right ventricle continuing as pulmonary trunk. So this is going to the ascending aorta, which lies behind the pulmonary trunk. This one is the pathway, and this is, you can see, it is going behind the pulmonary trunk. And up to this is the ascending aorta. So ascending aorta, at the beginning there are three dilatations. These are known as sinuses. So it is the aortic sinus. There is one anterior aortic sinus and two posterior aortic sinus. One is left and another is the right. So aortic sinuses are anterior aortic sinus, and two posteriors are right posterior and left posterior aortic sinuses. You can see this is the anterior aortic sinus, and this is giving the right coronary artery, and this one is the left coronary artery arising from the left posterior aortic sinus. This is the arch of the aorta. It originates as the continuation of ascending aorta. You can see, and this is the arch of the aorta curving to the left and posteriorly. This starts at the level of the upper border of the second costal cartilage near the sternocostal junction, and it curves round and goes a bit to the left. This is the sternum. You can see manubrium sterni image. So lower half of the manubrium sterni remain in contact with the arch of the aorta. So arch of the aorta is closely related to the lower part of the manubrium. So arch of the aorta is continuous as a curved structure, and behind the left half of the sternal angle, it continues as the descending thoracic aorta. Three branches arise from the arch of the aorta. You can see this is the convex border of the arch of the aorta, and from the convex area the three branches arise, and on the right side this is the brachiocephalic trunk going to upwards and to the right, and on the left side this is subclavian artery going to the upper limb, and this one is the left. The subclavian artery are two in number. The right and left vary in their origin. So the right one, you see, this is the arch of the aorta, brachiocephalic trunk, and from the brachiocephalic trunk, the right subclavian artery arrives, and this origin is just behind the right sternoclavicular joint. On the left side, this is the branch of the arch of the aorta directly, and it is in the thorax, in the superior mediastinum. This one is the subclavian. This proceeds towards the upper limb, and at the outer border of the first rib it ends. So up to this is the subclavian on the right side, but on the left side it is a bit longer. The termination point is, so you can see this is scalenus anterior muscle and inserted into the first rib. So this muscle continues and lies in front of the subclavian artery. So it divides the subclavian artery into three parts. The first part is medial to this muscle, second part is behind this muscle, and the third part starts from the lateral margin of this muscle and continues up to the outer border of the first rib. This one is the place, and it is the outer border of the first rib. This is the first rib. So the termination point of the subclavian on either side is the same. Here these two arteries continue as axillary artery of that side. Right axillary and left axillary artery. So subclavian artery supplies the lower part of the neck, deep structures of the neck. It goes in, sends branch to the structures in the cranial cavity, the shoulder, upper limb, and the thorax. So this widespread distribution of branches are there from this short artery. From the first part, it gives vertebral artery. You can see this is the vertebral artery, arises from the first part. The second artery arising from the first part is the thyrocervical trunk. This is thyrocervical trunk. And you can see another artery. This is relatively smaller. This is internal thoracic artery, passes anteriorly. This is the third branch of the first part. The second part, one branch is there. It is known as costocervical trunk. This gives to the important artery, superior intercostal artery, first and second intercostal artery arising from the superior intercostal artery, and the deep cervical artery are the branches of this costocervical trunk. third part is not having any branch. It actually continues as axillary artery of that side. So axillary artery is the continuation of subclavian artery at the outer border of the first rib. You can see this is the first rib, and this is scalenus anterior muscle. This is first part of the subclavian artery, second part, and this one is the third part of the subclavian artery, and continues as axillary artery up to this point. You can see this is the origin, and it continues up to the, this is the teres major muscle, the lower border of the teres major muscle. So from here to here, this is axillary artery. So this is the end point. This one is the teres major muscle going to the humerus, and its lower border is this one. Here it continues as brachial artery. Now you can see this is pectoralis major, minor muscle under cover of major. So this is passing anterior to the axillary artery and inserted into the coracoid process. So this is dividing the axillary artery into three parts. Behind it, proximal to this, and part distal to this. You can see this is the pectoralis major muscle. If you remove, then pectoralis minor can be observed. You see, this is the pectoralis major muscle inserted to the humerus. This one is the brachial plexus. This is shown brachial plexus with the spinal cord. All the parts are shown here. Actually, brachial plexus surrounds the axillary artery. Here you can see origin of the brachial plexus. Now it is surrounding the branching, surrounding the axillary artery. So this is the ventral rami making the plexus, and it divides into three trunks. Then each trunk divides into two divisions. The posterior divisions unite together to form the posterior cord. This is axillary artery lies here in front of the posterior cord and in between other two cords. So this one you can see, this is lateral cord and this is medial cord, and this lies between these two and in front of the posterior cord. This is an important relation of the axillary artery with the brachial plexus. All this structure remains in the axillary sheath, that is continuation of the deep cervical fascia of the neck. You can see all the structures from the neck going in through the axilla to the upper limb arm. This is the axillary sheath. You can see the brachial plexus as well as vessels are within this sheath. This is, I already have said that the axillary artery has three parts, and this is actually divided by the pectoralis muscle, this pectoralis minor. So this pectoralis minor covers the second part. You can see this is the pectoralis major muscle that is cut down, and you can see the pectoralis minor muscle that covers a small part of the axillary artery. So this proximal part is first part of the axillary artery extending between the outer border of the first rib to the upper border of the pectoralis minor, then up to the lower part of the pectoralis minor. This is the second part, and distal to this is the third part of axillary artery up to the lower border of the minor. The first part gives superior thoracic artery. This one is the superior thoracic artery. Very easy to remember that the first part gives one branch, then second part will give this thoracoacromial as well as these lateral thoracic two arteries arising from the second part, and third part gives three arteries. This is the subscapular branch, and two, this is circumflex humeral, posterior anterior circumflex humeral arteries. So it can be easily remembered that the first part gives one branch, superior thoracic artery, the second part giving two branches, thoracoacromial and lateral thoracic, and third part gives the subscapular artery as well as circumflex humeral posterior, circumflex humeral anterior. This brachial artery, you can see this one is the teres major muscle, and this is the inferior border of the teres major muscle. So this axillary artery continues up to this. Here it becomes the brachial artery. So brachial artery moves downward, and it curves anteriorly to pass behind the median nerve. This is the median nerve, to be lateral to this nerve, and in front of the elbow it lies between the two epicondyles. It is actually midway between a bit. This artery is remaining superficial under skin and deep fascia, and can be felt through the pulsation. We can feel throughout the arms, and it's a lower part. It's a overlap by the bicipital aponeurosis. This is the bicipital tendon and aponeurosis. Here in this part, lower part, it lies between the biceps brachii, and this is the median nerve. So lower half remains between biceps brachii and median nerve. Extreme lower part is covered by the biceps tendon and bicipital. This brachial artery gives the profunda brachii artery. This is the largest branch of the brachial artery. It gives muscles, branches to the anterior compartment muscles, nutrient artery to this humerus. This one is the superior ulnar collateral, and this one is the inferior ulnar collateral, and finally by the side of the neck of the radius, it divides into radial and ulnar arteries. So these are the branches of this profunda femoris is very large branch, and giving nutritional supply to the arm mostly. Also it is supplied by the muscular branch. Numerous muscular branch arises to supply the muscles of this compartment. Profunda brachii is a very large branch of brachial artery and passes backward into the posterior compartment of the arm, and it follows the radial nerve. You see, and this is the brachial artery. This is the neck of the radius. So at the level of the neck of the radius, this divides into two arteries. This is the radial artery, and this one is the ulnar artery. This part remains under cover of bicipital aponeurosis. This is the bicipital aponeurosis. This one is the biceps tendon. Here you can see this is the biceps tendon and bicipital aponeurosis. This is the bicipital aponeurosis, and tendon is there. Already we know that the brachial artery is closely related to the median nerve, and it is also superficial throughout the length, and we can feel the pulsation almost at all level. This lower part lies just in front of the humerus, and we can use this part for measuring the blood pressure. we should remember that the blood pressure is the pressure exerted by the flowing blood over the wall while flowing through it. So this pressure tries always to keep the artery dilated, and we can feel the pulsation. And while measuring the blood pressure, we use this cuff around this lower part, and we can hear sound by placing the stethoscope. We should remember one point, that it is very closely related to median nerve, and if we inflate the cuff more, the pressure will be more and can cause pain. This is the relation of the median nerve, and it is also very close to this one, and we can feel the pulse by, this is bicep brachii muscle. You can place at the medial end of the muscle. What is actually the anatomical explanation of the blood pressure measurement? This one is the brachial artery. Proceeding is the radial artery, and it is the ulnar artery. We usually take pulse here on the radial artery. Now, when we place a cuff around the lower part of the arm, this actually inside it contains the muscles, blood vessels, nerves. So whenever we raise the pressure within the cuff, this will squeeze all the structures. So this pressure will transmit it to this area, and this pressure will try to collapse the blood vessels, arteries. You see, this is the brachial artery. So having some blood pressure, with some pressure the blood is moving. Suppose it is 120 millimeter of mercury. So every time maximum pressure will be 120. So when cuff pressure rises more than 120, the artery will collapse, because this will not be able to cross this barrier, which is more than 120. Now, if we deflate this pressure, if we leak this air out of this valve, then pressure will gradually fall. And whenever this will be just lower than the arterial blood pressure, maximum blood pressure, then blood will start flowing. And the flow will be that time when the pressure is maximum. So when the pressure is low, that will be less than this cuff pressure. So it will be totally collapse. Suppose the pressure is ranging from 120 to 80. So if it is 100 degree, 100 millimeter of mercury, the cuff pressure, then what will happen? 120, more than 100 pressure in the blood will flow. But when it drops below 100, the pressure will stop. The pressure will stop the blood flow. So blood will go with beating. We will be able to hear some sound. This is the systolic pressure when the sound starts. Now, if we continue to deflate, this will be lower than the minimum pressure created within the blood. So blood flow will be continuous. So beating sounds will gradually muffle down and will disappear. That is the diastolic pressure. So thank you very much for remaining with this presentation.